Hi, I'm Erica, a mom, wife, and caregiver. I have been through the highs and lows of having a child with a medically complex background and special needs, all caused by epilepsy. I'm here to let you know you're not alone. There are so many resources out there, and that you too can and will come out on the other side stronger and more resilient than you ever imagined. It's not always easy, but I'm here for you. Welcome to the Parenting Epilepsy and Special Needs podcast. Welcome back, friends. I hope you are doing well. I know, as I've mentioned many times, I am located in the Midwest, and it's just so nice when the sun is shining. And I feel like it just gives you this extra boost of energy. At least it does for me. So I hope that's the case for you as well. Today's episode is a topic that I have seen come up a lot lately. I belong to a couple of different Facebook groups, and most of them all related to either special needs parenting or epilepsy surgery for pediatrics. And the question that I see fellow moms asking is, how do you prepare for your child's brain surgery? I see a lot of parents make statements such as, I am so anxious, I can't focus on anything else. I am so worried, I cannot sleep. I just want to cry. I feel so helpless. I can relate to all of these statements. I remember feeling this way, and I don't know that there's necessarily a right answer, but I just wanted to share what I did in hopes that it can help someone else, because it's truly scary. You're making a decision based on, again, as I've said, not everyone has the luxury of time, but if you do and you've done a lot of testing, you've had all your hospital stays, you've, gotten second opinions, visited other hospitals, the whole thing. And now here you are, you've made the decision, and it's like, oh, crap. I mean, I just remember we only had, and I'll mention this later, but we only had, I feel like, about 60 days or so, give or take, in between from when we scheduled the surgery to our actual daughter's surgery day for her hemispherectomy. And it's hard. I mean, I am grateful that I had a corporate job at that time, and also I was doing real estate on the side, and that was a good distraction in a way because it kept me busy during the day and allowed me and really forced me to have to think about other things to keep things going for our family. And then in addition, as I mentioned, I have 2 older daughters, and they were younger at the time. Um, I believe my oldest was in middle school, and my middle daughter, I think, was in, gosh, 3rd or 4th grade. Um, so anyways, and then on top of that, as a husband and wife, it's hard. You're just kind of like both trying to deal with this and process it, but yet support and be there for each other. So there's a lot, a lot to unpack and process and just comes to come to terms with as you're realizing that, okay, take a deep breath. Here we go. This is it. So I totally can relate to all of these parents, and I feel for them when I see these posts because it's just so hard. That's all I can say. Um, but I I remember thinking personally that I can't go into this feeling like this. I need to find some type of information, or the phrase that kept coming back to me was, you, and when I say you, I mean me. You need to be mentally strong, and you need to be probably the most mentally strong that I've ever been. I mean, I don't know, for those of you that don't know me that closely, or that personally, I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was pretty young. I think I was 19. So that prior to having a child with medical complex epilepsy and medical special needs, that was probably the most traumatic thing to go through. And I know this might sound crazy, but in a way, there are some things that I took from that experience that helped helped me kind of process this, but then also I felt the need to read and find information that was going to help me think differently, in order to get through this without having a complete a complete meltdown and, um, yeah, just keeping it together is probably the best way to say it. So, anyways, as I was saying, like I said, I can relate to all these statements that I see, and despite every question that we asked to my husband and I asked to fellow parents of children who had a hemispherectomy or even our doctors, there's nothing that can quite prepare you for such a life-changing procedure. It's a hard, hard decision, and after many tests and hospital stays, failed medications, and watching our daughter's seizures progressively get worse, we knew deep down that it was our next best option, and after many conversations, we made the decision to move forward with the hemispherectomy surgery and schedule a date. So once that date is on the calendar, I remember having feelings of hope that it would work, hope that it would give her some type of relief, but also fear, anxiety, and the constant need to keep my thoughts in my head in the right place. I knew that this was going to be extremely important if we were going to get through this as a family and as a couple. So, this is when I began my search for books on becoming or being a mentally strong person. In my opinion, being a mentally strong person does not mean that you are so tough that you do not show your feelings, but actually the complete opposite. I wanted to find guidance on how to deal with and process all of the feelings that I was having. And looking back, I also feel it would have been helpful for me to meet with a therapist at that time. But with only 60 days in between scheduling the surgery, having a demanding full-time corporate job outside of being a mom and a wife and everything else that we had going on, I felt that searching for books was going to be my best option at that point in my life. So, what books did I end up reading? I read 3 audiobooks. I am always in my car, so that was the best route for me. If you are more of a physical book person and you have the ability to do that, go for it. But in those 60 days to help me mentally prepare for what I how I was feeling and what I was going to be not only what I was experiencing at that time, but then also I think the hardest part is no matter what you do to prepare, you really don't know how you're going to feel, um, on that day. I mean, other than terrified and filled with hope. Um, but it I know it's gonna be one of the most mentally and emotionally exhausting and draining weeks of my life, and I think I was pretty correct. The surgery was around I feel like it was, like, 5 to 6 hours long. It was some very crazy, but understandable for the complexity of what was being done. Um, then we stayed at the hospital for 2 weeks for recovery after the surgery, and then we were on to pediatric inpatient rehab. So, I was correct in feeling the need to mentally prepare as our story, like many families, is full of ups, downs, really amazing days, happy days, and occasional very scary days. Am I glad that I read these books to help me through these moments? Absolutely, yes. Here are the 3 books that I chose to read. Before I list the names of these books, these are books that helped me. And again, to note, this was just under 10 years ago. So there may be other books out there that you may find helpful. If you do come across books, and I'm sure I'll mention this at the end, but please share, as I think this is so important for us to get out to other families. So, the 3 books that I read, the first one was 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do, and that was by Amy Morin. Second book was Rising Strong by Brene Brown, and Grit by Angela Duckworth. I will provide you with a high level summary of each book. I hope this helps and that you can decide which one you would like to start with as you prepare for your brain surgery journey. I want to state that these books can be used in both personal and business growth scenarios. It's all about how you apply them to your specific situation and implement them across your life. So, if as you're reading, you find that there's some of them definitely have some business focus, but I focused on taking the information and how I could use it to what we had going on. So, let's start with 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. And that's Morin. So, Amy Morin goes over habits that mentally strong people take on to help them get through difficult times and situations. She she mentions how they pay attention to their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And here are a few of the key takeaways that I found helpful as a parent of a child who was about to have a major brain surgery. They don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. Oof, that's a gut punch. Yes, I know I mean, this is tough, but it's a strong reminder that people all around us are going through difficult things. Yes, I can most definitely recall thinking at that time, nobody has it this hard. Why do I have to make this decision? And on and on. But at the end of the day, and this is again why I read a lot of these books, is that I knew that I had to change my thinking and stay in control of my thoughts to so that I could better help my daughter. The bottom line is thinking, will these thoughts serve me in the long run? Will they help me be equipped to help my child recover and thrive after surgery? No. So, while this is a tough pill to swallow because it is a very emotional time, it's a strong reminder that the importance of taking responsibility and focusing on what I need to do as a parent to help myself, my child, and our family prepare for this surgery is what I should be focusing on right now. My role as a mom was to model strength, resilience, and especially for my baby girl, to encourage her to show her a smile through the tough times and hold her tight and remind her how much I love her after she had a really difficult day and had nothing left to give. Another important theme mentioned in this book was that mentally strong people don't give away their power. And you might think, what does this have to do with preparing for brain surgery? It has to do with understanding that you are in control and responsible for your emotions, and you have a choice of how you respond. You can either sit in fear and constantly worry, or you can seek help through the form of books, exercise, meditation, therapy, talking with friends, something to help calm your mind and emotions. There are 2 themes that really stood out to me, and those were mentally strong people do not waste time on things that they cannot control, and they do not dwell on the past. There are so many things in life that, as a part of this process of going through a major pediatric brain surgery with your child, that you cannot control. This was an important reminder to stay focused on what I could control, ask questions, and speak up if something did not seem right or she seemed off during recovery, but be prepared that things can and will happen that are out of our control. What matters most is how you respond to it. So I can recall that my daughter had a very high temperature post surgery, and started repeatedly vomiting. This was definitely a very hard day for all of us because up to that point she had been making some good gains. But as I've learned during these types of procedures, especially a hemispherectomy, sometimes you can have some really good days, and other times it can all of a sudden be the progress can be halted by a rough day because we're human. So, again, as I said, it was a hard day, and the doctors ran tests. They needed to check for hydrocephalus or if any infection had occurred. And she was fine, thank goodness. But some kids have really tough days here and there as a part of recovery. And you got to think about this. And I remember my daughter's brain surgeon reminding us that she just had a really traumatic, it's almost like a shock to the brain and the nervous system. So, yes, this sometimes can happen. And I was grateful that the hospital team and her surgeon, they were on top of it. They did what they needed to do to make sure that she was okay and that this was just kind of her body's way of recovering, unfortunately. But thankfully that only lasted 1 day for us. I remember telling myself or that this is one of those days and you'll get through it. The next day was much better and she continued to make progress and recover on her journey. The final theme that resonated with me from 13 Things That Mentally Strong People Do Not Do was dwell on the past. Again, I knew that this might be hard. Even though my daughter was having many seizures prior to her brain surgery, she could walk, she had full vision, she had full use of her left hand. But I had to remind myself that our goal was to improve her quality of life by either stopping or reducing the number of seizures that she was having. It doesn't serve me to dwell on what could have been if she had never had seizures to start with, or what life might be like if she didn't have a hemispherectomy. We made a decision based on all of the information that we had at that time. My overall philosophy in life is to keep moving forward. Our daughter has taught us some amazing lessons about life, and none of that would have happened if she wasn't who she is today. And because of everything that she and us as a family has gone through. Of course, I wish I didn't have to go through any of this, but I am grateful that God chose me to be her mom. I love her so much, and I am incredibly proud of all that she has accomplished and the light and fun that she brings to our family. Again, there were other themes that were mentioned in this book that were really helpful. So I highly recommend reading this book to help get your mind in the right place prior to your child's surgery. Next up, Rising Strong by Brene Brown. Rising Strong is about helping people to get back up after falling or hitting rock bottom, about overcoming life's difficult moments while building resilience through vulnerability and courage. This book was one of my favorites because it helped validate that yes, you will go through some hard times in life, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you are willing to look for it. The key concepts in this book are the fall. This refers to any setback from small disappointments to major life events. Then the vulnerability as courage. Brene Brown conveys that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the path to wholeheartedness, creativity, connection, and it's essential for getting back up. Next, she goes into her 3-step process of reckoning, rumbling, and revolutionizing. So I'll explain these. Reckoning is acknowledging and getting curious about your emotions and the story that you're telling yourself. Rumbling is getting honest with yourself about those stories and challenging your assumptions and facing discomfort. Revolutionizing is writing a new ending to your story and living the process until it becomes a practice creating lasting change. This book stood out to me from the emotions that I was feeling when realizing that our family story was going to be rewritten. And it made me realize that this didn't mean that it had to be for the worst. Change was coming, and if we, not just I, were going to survive and thrive, we needed to be open and adapt. This book was one of my favorites, as I mentioned, in helping me through this process. So much so that I am going to read it again since as I started, kind of reminiscing about reading these books, I realized it has been almost 10 years and I really want to read this one again. So, the final book that I read was Grit by Angela Duckworth. This book was created based on the author's her own personal story and childhood and speaks to how success is not genius, but a unique combination of passion and long term perseverance. What caught my attention and led me to think I must read this book was in Grit, she takes readers into the field to visit cadets struggling through their first days at West Point, then teachers working in some of the toughest schools, and young finalists in the National Spelling Bee. She also talks about fascinating insights from history and shows what can be gleaned from modern experiments in peak performance. And then finally, she goes into um, different interviews with dozens of high achievers from the JP Morgan CEO to a New York cartoon editor to different sports coaches. So I realized that I was not reading this from the perspective of how to have grit and persevere as a business leader, although while that is helpful, but I was reading it from the perspective of how they got through difficult situations and scenarios. The most valuable lessons that I took away were continuing and moving forward, even on the hard days when you don't feel strong, showing up and believing in you and your child when progress is slow. I realized that grit is not a straight line. In challenging seasons, such as preparing for or going through a brain surgery, progress may be invisible, or you may feel like things are going backwards. But the important thing to remember, according to the author Angela Duckworth, is that your efforts count twice. So, what is this? So, even when outcomes aren't changing quickly, your effort, your frame of mind, your consistency still matters. And keep taking the actions that will help you build those habits to become a mentally stronger person. This might include asking for help, handing a difficult, handling a difficult day better than, say, in the past, or being aware of your thoughts throughout that day. These might sound like small wins, but they're evidence that you are resilient. Big wins will not always come through in the form of major breakthroughs. Remember, grit includes an ugly cry and still showing up, admitting things are really hard without quitting and giving up. Grit is not pushing through without emotion, ignoring burnout, or being strong all of the time. Your ability to feel your emotions, acknowledge your thoughts, and then get up, getting back on track, that is true grit. So I would love to hear your feedback. Do you have any tools, books, anything that you utilize to get through your child's brain surgery? If you read one of these books and you find another book that you find helpful, please share through either the comments or reviews on Apple or Spotify, or you can DM me on Instagram. I hope you found this helpful. I think it's a hard journey, but I think when I was thinking back to this period of time as I was planning this episode, it's hard. That was one of the hardest parts because you're in this transition and you're just hoping for the best and that yeah, that it all comes together. So, I feel you, I get it. But in closing, as always, thank you for being here, for listening. I am so proud of you. I am here for you. I know that you're doing your best with everything that you have on your plate. So until next time, stay strong, believe in yourself. You're an amazing mama, and your child is lucky to have you. Please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit. Don't forget to write a review or rate this episode. It would mean the world to me. And it helps get this show out to others who could benefit and use this information. You can follow me on Instagram at parentingepilepsy_special needs. See you on the next episode.